I am delighted to welcome you all here today, members of the Mobilise Consortium, our external committee members and all of our invited guests to the Mobilise Conference to share with us our achievements, impacts and next steps. I'm Lynne Rochester, I'm the academic co-lead for the consortium, and for the next 20 minutes I'm going to present together with Dr. Daniel Rooks, who is the industry co-lead from Novartis. And it's our job to set the scene for the rest of the day, and you've got a very exciting day ahead. So I'm going to get us started, and I'm going to provide the context for the Mobilise Consortium. So to begin with, I'm going to start with why are we focused on mobility? Why have we spent 5 years studying mobility? Well, we've done it because mobility is a global priority for these 3 very important reasons. A third of adults over the age of 75 years report severe limitations in their ability to walk. This is data from the European Union. And of course, that only increases that in people that are living with long-term health conditions, multimorbidity and frailty. So mobility loss is common. Mobility loss also tells us something very important about our health. Walking speed, for example, is an important readout of health, and it's predictive of mortality, morbidity and falls risk. And for that reason, it's called the sixth, or it's termed the sixth vital sign. Conversely, work from members of the consortium have shown that better walking is associated with better health and lower healthcare costs. So measuring walking tells us something important. And then finally, patients from diverse conditions identify living with walking impairments as a very important aspect of their health. They describe profound and diverse effects on everyday life, experienced not only at a physical level, but also this has impacts on their social lives and their mental health and emotional health. And this, of course, has wider impacts, as you can see in this mobility framework through work of the consortium as well. What's particularly interesting is that irrespective of the health condition, people experience living with walking impairments in the same way. So mobility loss is mobility loss, irrespective of how you get to that point. So for that makes mobility loss a global priority. And we need to really ideally identify it, do it early, and target it therapeutically. But to do that, we need to measure mobility accurately and consistently. So how well were we doing in 2017, and in fact, how well are we doing now? And it's safe to say, not really very well. Mobility measures as they exist at the moment have some limitations. For example, if we want to assess mobility, we tend to do it using indirect means. We issue questionnaires, we observe people, or we carry out brief tests. All of this provides an indirect view of mobility. It also provides an infrequent picture because we measure mobility periodically, and this provides us with a snapshot of mobility itself. And this often requires a visit to a clinic or a research centre, and in doing so places a high burden on participants, but also on the teams aiming to deliver these tests. Collectively, that leads to imprecise outcome measures that mean they're not fit for purpose for use in research and care. And if that's not bad enough, there is no common standard. There are lots and lots of different tests of mobility across conditions, but also, interestingly, even within conditions, there can be little agreement as to which is the best mobility assessment. So unsurprisingly, mobility is not routinely assessed in care, and it's certainly not routinely assessed in research. And if we want to target it as a global priority, that means we have some challenges. So what if we could measure the real thing? What if we could measure people as they went about their everyday activity? And the opportunity to use digital technology to provide an accurate and direct measure of mobility while people were going about their everyday lives was clear to all of the members of the academic consortium, and many of us were working on that. Personally, from a clinical perspective, I wanted to know if I'd made a difference where it counted. Was I measuring what mattered, when and where it mattered? And despite significant efforts to advance the state of the art using digital technology amongst many of us, there still remained a gap. There was no validated solution for assessing real-world mobility. At the same time, the pharmaceutical industry were facing its own challenges, and they could clearly see the benefits of using digital technology to drive much-needed innovation in clinical trials. That in turn would bring a unified and inclusive approach, not confined to assessment centres, and really in turn delivering what we need, much needed patient-centred innovation. So, led by Novartis and Dr. Ronan Rubinoff, and we're going to hear from him in just a moment, a group of industry partners released a call for academic partners to develop a proposal to meet the challenge that you can see here. Importantly, they wanted a single device, a simple, low-burden solution that worked to measure mobility with the accuracy and precision of a gate laboratory. No big task there, you think. Mission impossible? Well, not to the members of the Mobilise consortium who came together to address this challenge. And this is a snapshot of the consortium. So we are funded through the IMI initiative. That's an innovative medicines initiative that brings public and private partners together. Mobilise has involved more than 300 experts in the 5-year journey that we've undertaken from 12 countries and 34 partner institutions, universities, pharmaceutical partners, technology, CROs, as well as involving patients and the public. We had a very large budget, we've spent most of it now, to deliver on our objectives, and we started our work in April 2019 and are due to finish at the end of June this year. So then and now, the photo at the top shows us at our kick-off meeting, and the photo at the bottom shows us at our last General Assembly. There's a little bit more grey hair in the photo at the bottom. But the key reason for showing this photograph is, in order to deliver on the scale and ambition of the work required, we needed a multidisciplinary, multi-stakeholder, inclusive and collaborative approach, and that's what the Mobilise consortium delivered. And we've also had significant support from our external committees, our Public and Patient Advisory Group, scientific advisors, and our Clinical Study Steering Committee, and we're very grateful for that. This is our leadership team that represents 4 work packages of Mobilise, drawn equally from academia and industry. We don't, however, work in a siloed manner. We've integrated the work across all of the work packages, and I think that's really been the secret to the progress that we've made. So I'm going to talk to you just briefly now about the approach that we've taken, and this will just help orientate everybody to the day ahead. So we wanted to take a comprehensive approach to mobility assessment to deal with some of the limitations that I highlighted earlier. So these are the 4 main cohorts that we evaluated, all of whom have significant mobility impairments, and we wanted to be able to measure mobility generically across these cohorts. We're also able to quantify sarcopenia and frailty because we have a very detailed clinical protocol, and we carried out some additional technical validation work in congestive heart failure as well. All of this future-proofing the ability to implement this approach across multiple cohorts in the future. And these are our aims. And I've said some of this already, but we were aiming to develop a comprehensive digital technology solution to continuously assess real-world mobility. One of the important points here is that solution needed to be able to work independently of the device. So we didn't want to be tied to one particular device company. As long as the companies had the right technical standards, the software we developed should be able to run on any device, and that's really key to sustainability in the future. Our primary objective is very ambitious. We're going to hear about this level of ambition from one of our speakers in the afternoon. We want to take the method we're developing and qualify it for use by regulatory authorities, for use in clinical trials and drug discovery trials, but ultimately in care. And this is a long and winding road. But one of the key features to get there, and throughout all of our work, is one size doesn't fit all. We need to develop generic solutions if we want this to be sustainable. This is our approach to digital mobility assessment. We first needed to start with a clear definition of what we define as mobility in the context in which we are measuring it. And this is a very functional definition of mobility: the ability to walk while carrying out mobility-related activities of daily living. This is our digital mobility assessment, a single device worn on the body or attached directly to the skin. And this gives us a continuous measure over 7 days, which was the period we were interested in, of mobility performance, what someone actually does in the real world, not what they think they do or what we see that they are doing. So this is our concept of interest. And from this, we aim to quantify a comprehensive panel of digital mobility outcome measures, because we didn't know, and we still do not know, which are the best measures for use in individual cohorts and what works across all cohorts. And then finally, this is the context in which we intend the methods to be used to assess mobility in real life, in the evaluation of new therapies, but ultimately in care, and to put the tools in the hands of clinicians and patients as well. This is our overall approach. We had 2 grand challenges, and you're going to hear about these grand challenges this morning. First of all, we had to show that we could accurately measure real-world mobility. This hadn't been done when we started. This was the gap that we needed to meet when we started. So we had to take data from a digital device, apply a novel algorithm, and accurately quantify mobility in all of our cohorts of interest. And then we had to show that those outcomes told us something important about health status. They related to clinical constructs, they were able to show meaningful change, and they were able to predict adverse and other important events. In order to ensure that our work is meaningful, acceptable, and informed, we've worked with patients throughout, and you're going to hear about that from Dr. Alison Keogh this afternoon, and one of our patient advisors. And then finally, just as the regulators have a very robust approach in evaluating the safety and efficacy of a novel therapy before it's released for use, they have to take the same approach to evaluate a new methodology, because that methodology will be used to evaluate those therapies ultimately. So to ensure that our work was fit for purpose, we have made sure that we've spoken to regulatory authorities throughout in order to ensure our methods and the evidence generated is fit for purpose and will give us the best chance of approval eventually. I can say we've made some progress along that road, but it is a long and winding journey, and you will hear about that. So this morning is structured to hear about the clinical validation work, our first theme of the conference, and the afternoon is looking forward, implementation and sustainability. So you'll hear from about the work with patients and regulatory authorities, and the panel discussions are set up to focus on that. So finally, 2 more slides. It would be remiss of me not to have a slide showing this. It has been an interesting journey, as many of you know, and you can imagine, full of ups and downs, twists and turns, and serious uphill efforts along the way. COVID being only one of those issues that we've had to deal with. The overall plan, when we started, there was no guidance. Guidance exists now in developing these novel tools and working with regulators. When we started, there was no guidance, and we had to develop ours, and the guidance is developed in parallel. And for both of those reasons, we've needed a dynamic approach, not only to project management, but also to the work that we've undertaken, so we can pivot when we need to make sure we are producing the best evidence, and we have certainly achieved that. So we haven't yet finished the Mobilise journey. You're going to hear about that and our plans for the future. And finally, to survive the journey, you need to have a certain level of resilience and a very strong, cohesive team spirit. The Mobilise Consortium, our group of superheroes, have never ever wavered in the challenge, and they have ensured that rather than being mission impossible, they have made this mission possible. Teamwork makes the dream work. So I'm now going to hand over to Dr. Dan Rooks, who's going to orientate us to the rest of the day.